Welcome back in on to week six. Season seems like it's flying by. But with that being said, we're here to answer all your start sit questions for the week. So let's not waste any time, shall we? Let's go ahead and get to it. We already got quite a few here already teed up. Generation X right out the gate. Good afternoon. Drop Judy or Trey. I'm guessing that's Tucker, Shaheed, Dobbs, Hunter, Jennings, Coker, or Downs, or just keep Judy. I mean, if that's like your worst option, like I would rather have Juwan Jennings. I know he's been hurt, but I would personally rather have Juwan Jennings. It's a better offense, the offense that right now is number one in the league in pass attempts. So I would rather have Juwan Jennings than Jerry Judy. So I have no problem with doing that, unless you have a better option. Roll out Goddard, Juwan, Ertz, or Taylor if Brock is out again. Is Vidal worth a gamble or a flex play, or wait that one out a little bit? So one, I think at tight end, I would go with probably Zach Ertz on that one. I know Zach Ertz didn't do hardly anything last week against the Chargers, but they didn't really have to do a whole lot, to be honest with you, in that offense last week. In that game, I should say, and against the Chargers, it was like 27-10. The game was pretty much well within hand. I think it's a little bit different outcome this week against the Falcons. So I would go with Ertz on that one. Taylor would be a second for me. As far as the Kamani Vidal thing, I think I view it very much similar to last week against for the Cardinals situation. I think that Hassan Haskins is going to be the early down back. I think Kamani Vidal, as long as Naheem Hines isn't active, because they added him, but he's on the practice squad. I can't imagine he probably plays this week though, considering it's not like he's played it all this year. I'd assume it's going to be a couple week thing. But either way, I view Vidal as like the Amari DiMercado. I think he's going to be like the pass catching back, the change of pace back, where Haskins is probably the third down or the goal line back. But I think looking at the situation that when it comes to these two, like obviously the matchup is great. I mean the Dolphins are horrendous against the run. We just saw uh, Rico Dowdle go off for 200 yards in that game, and I don't think at all that's what um, that I don't think that is what you can expect from Hassan Haskins, because I don't think Hassan Haskins is nearly as good as Rico Dowdle is. But I think the upside's there for Haskins. But I think it would have to be a game where the Chargers come out and throw the ball at a really high rate. I think you need this to be a back and forth affair. I think that's where Kamani Vidal fits in PPR formats, anyways. So for me, unless you have like you're just desperate, I think I'd rather probably wait it out. Packers were taken before I could pull them in. Rams, Steelers, Raiders, Chargers, or Patriots. So for me, in this question, it's going to be pretty simple. Let's see. I'm gonna go with the Rams. It looks like Lamar Jackson's gonna be out again this week. We saw how dysfunctional this offense was. It sounds like Tyler Huntley might start for the Ravens. That doesn't really move the needle for me much. I mean, he's obviously mobile and can get around, but I don't think it really changes a whole lot. Their offensive line looks really bad right now without Lamar Jackson back there. But I just don't think Lamar plays this week with them being on bye next week. And so I think there's a much higher likelihood he just sits. And so with that being said, I know the Rams weren't great last week against the 49ers, but that's an entirely different situation. So I would go with the Rams here if it was me. Again, pick three: Godwin, Coleman, Judy, Dobbs, Ridley, DJ Moore, Dak, or Jaden Daniels. I've been loving Dak's passing attack here lately. Yes, he's been phenomenal, top five quarterback. And honestly, it really does look a lot like the Bengals situation last year. Like really bad defense. Dak is having to put this team on his back. Javante Williams has also been phenomenal. And it's been even more impressive that he's been doing it without CeeDee Lamb, too. But I would still go Jaden Daniels in this matchup against the Falcons. I know Jaden Daniels didn't have to do a ton last week, but I think another week removed from that injury, I think I just really like the spot. I like the matchup. I like that game environment. Um, I would still go Jaden Daniels over Dak. And then pick three between Godwin, Coleman, Judy, Dobbs, Ridley, DJ Moore. So I would go with Calvin Ridley, who I still need to actually tonight record my must start plays of the week like I did last week. We're going to do that again this week with quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. I'm going to do that once I get off here. But a lot of these are the wide receiver threes that I have. So Calvin Ridley for me would be definitely in play, especially in this matchup against the Raiders. And then I would go with Romeo Dobbs. Let me take this down. So Romeo Dobbs, I have as a top 36 wide receiver this week. And then who was the last one? Between Godwin, Judy, Keon Coleman, DJ Moore. I think I would go with DJ Moore on the other one. It's tough with DJ Moore, mainly because like he just hasn't really fit well within this offense. I really wonder too if now coming off their bye, there's been some speculation that Luther Burden is actually going to play more this week, but I think that's probably more is going to hurt Alameda Zacchaeus. I would probably still go DJ Moore. Really love that game as well. I think I said the Falcons earlier. I meant to say the Bears. The game of the Commanders. But Falcons are playing the Bills. Anyways, so I would go DJ Moore there. So it would be DJ Moore, Dobbs, and Ridley for me. Start Dak over Hurts. So I like both of them, obviously. I would go with Hurts though. Still, the Giants defense is really bad, and I know the Panthers defense isn't great either. They've been better though against passing games. It's been the ground running backs that have really killed them, but they actually haven't been terrible against quarterbacks really this year. But it doesn't really matter to me how well Dak Prescott's played. But I still can't sit Jalen Hurts with this upside. The only thing that would ever concern you is that they go really conservative. They're playing the Giants. They just lean on their defense, and they don't really open the offense up much in a game like this. Like that's always possible, but I still just can't see myself sitting Jalen Hurts in a matchup against the Giants. I mean, the Giants have just been pretty bad against pretty much every position. So I would probably go with I would go with Hurts. And then start Waddle over Marvin Harrison. Yes, especially with the report came out today that Kyler Murray is still dealing with an injury. And that's why I have Kyler Murray at quarterback 20 against this matchup against the Colts. Sounds like I think it's a foot injury or an ankle injury. I think it's going to be really tough for him to do a lot of things if he plays. And so it really kind of lowers my expectations a little bit for this passing game, especially deep passing. I don't think, especially if he can't be as mobile as he normally is, I think that's going to be a problem with him getting around the pocket. And so I just am a little bit lower on some of the Cardinals pass catchers. So I would go with Waddle here, especially with really nobody else there in that offense taking away targets, I guess, outside of Darren Waller. And even Darren Waller only had like 5 targets last week. Harold. Hi, Trey Tucker, Olave, Brian Thomas, Rashid Shaheed, Kendrick Bourne, non PPR. Thanks. I would still go with Brian Thomas. Saw a little bit of positivity with Brian Thomas last week. I think he had over double-digit fantasy points. I think for the first time this year against the Chiefs, so that was a positive to see. But I would go with Brian Thomas, and it sounds like Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings are going to play this week. So that kind of lowers my, how much I love Kendrick Bourne, just because he really becomes like the third or fourth option there in the passing game. I probably would go with Chris Olave as the other option there in that matchup against the Saints. Or against the Patriots, sorry. So, yeah, I think I would go with Olave and Brian Thomas. Is CeeDee Lamb playing this week? I don't think he plays this week. We'll see, practice starting up. Really, Thursday and Friday are the 2 days that we care about when it comes to practice reports. Those are kind of the two that, you really get to see what we think is going to happen. I don't think CeeDee Lamb plays this week. I think there's a much higher likelihood, though, he's back next week. So, but I don't think that he plays this week, honestly. We'll see, though. Who would be a good stash if you only have 4? Vidal, McConkey, Pittman, Juwan Johnson, Travis Hunter, Calvin Ridley, Tyron Tracy, Ricky Pearsall. Lad McConkey, Michael Pittman, Ricky Pearsall, And honestly, probably Travis Hunter. Like Hunter actually looked decent. The only thing that's frustrating, obviously, with him is just the split role that he's in. But those will probably be the four. Uh, Hopefully, they start utilizing Travis Hunter a little bit more because we saw like how explosive he could be in that offense, against the Chiefs. But those would be the four that I would: McConkey, Pittman, Travis Hunter, and Ricky Pearsall. Out of those four, would you flex, or out of those four, would you flex, and who would you flex them over? J.K. Dobbins. Probably not. I mean, J.K. Dobbins and the Broncos are playing the Jets, so I would probably stick with J.K. Dobbins. I think. No, I take that back. I'd play Michael Pittman over him. Sorry. I like Michael Pittman a lot. I have Michael Pittman as a top 15 wide receiver. So this week, I would go with Michael Pittman. Wife wants to know with Flacco going to the Browns, safe to play Higgins. Also, Bo Nix or Daniel Jones this week. So it's gonna be Daniel Jones, pretty easily for me. Just the offense has been awesome, and then I mean, safe to play T Higgins. No, I mean, I guess if you want to call it an upgrade, I guess it's like a slight upgrade, right? I think there's certain aspects of having Joe Flacco that's going to help, but he's still playing behind a really, really bad offensive line. I mean, the Bengals' offensive line is absolutely atrocious. And so he's not mobile and he's not going to be able to escape the pocket. And so if they can't, it's either going to be A, getting the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible and still short, stuff, and then, hitting guys like Jamar Chase on slants and stuff like that and try to get him in space. Like it's still going to be a lot of that because, I mean, this offensive line is just not very good. And so I think Higgins is still like a top 36 wide receiver. Thankfully, he scored a touchdown last week. But I mean, this is still a matchup against the Packers, too. I know the Packers got the doors blown off of them a couple weeks ago before their bye, but at least their defense. But I still I still have reservations. I mean, and it's not a good matchup against the Packers. The Packers get pressure at one of the highest rates in the league. I think they could have a field day with that offense. So I don't hate it. Just really depend on your other options. Let's go Blue Jays. What a series. Yeah, I mean, at least the Yankees didn't win, right? And I know if there's any Yankees fans in here, they're going to tell me to go F off. But like anybody that's not a Yankees fan is happy that the Yankees didn't win. So, it's good to see somebody different. Like the Blue Jays have really played really well. I mean, they pretty much handled the Yankees. I mean, they pretty much blew them out the first two games at home, right? And they've been phenomenal. The Blue Jays have at home. So, and they've been doing it without Bo Bichette too, which is pretty impressive too. So, really, right now, I mean, I think it's a pretty clear path to the World Series for the Blue Jays. Recon Gamer, you like Fidel or Haskins? It'd be Haskins. I just think the game environment. I actually have Haskins. Let's see. I have Haskins as my RB29, and that's mainly because, like I said, I just think the matchup is phenomenal um, against the Dolphins this week. Just you couldn't ask for a better matchup for a wide receiver or for a running back, excuse me. So those are the top 36 or the RB3s for me. Ken, Paul, Kamara, Warren, pick two. Mm. So for me, it's going to be Brees Hall. I don't love the matchup against Denver, but it's involved in the passing game. And then as far as the other is concerned, I think it'd be Jalen Warren for me as my RB. I would go with those two. I'm a little bit lower on Alvin Kamara. He just this offense. I mean, the Saints' offense isn't good. I know they won last week, but they're like 28th at points per drive this year. I just don't really love it when it comes to Kamara. Or I mean, Kendrick Miller, I think is fine if you absolutely had to put somebody in. as like a desperation flex just because he's seen like double-digit carries the last 2 weeks, and he's getting some goal line work, but he's not being involved at all in the passing game. It's still Alvin Kamara, but I would go with Hall and Jaylen Warren here in his return. Well, Keenan Allen, Devonta Smith, DK Metcalf, Wan'Dale Robinson need to. So I will say this. This is going to be Keenan Allen for me, for sure. He's a top 24 wide receiver for me. Let me grab my notes really quick because, like, generally speaking, I haven't really been that high on Devonta Smith this year. But I will say this, and he's somebody that I wrote up as a must start for me. It's been a frustrating year for the Eagles. But Devonta Smith has fantasy finishes of wide receiver 74, wide receiver 51, and wide receiver 70. But he also has finishes of wide receiver 9 and 10. He's currently averaging 11.6 fantasy points per game. That ranks top 33. He's been pretty boomer bust, but the Eagles have only averaged 30 pass attempts per game, and he's only receiving an 18% target share. But I do think things might be changing, with what we saw last week at 44 pass attempts, because they just haven't been able to run the ball at all this year. Really, Saquon really hasn't been very good at all. For the most part, he's not anywhere close to what he was last year. But here's what I'll say. This is a really good matchup against the Giants, who have allowed the third most PPR points to opposing wide receivers. And even more so, they have actually allowed the most fantasy points or PPR points to slot wide receivers, where Devonta Smith has run over 50% of his routes, and he ranks fourth among all wide receivers and routes from the slot. So I actually think this sets up really well for Devonta Smith. He saw 10 targets last week. So obviously the Eagles wide receivers have been risky plays all year, but I think this at least sets up as a really good matchup for Devonta Smith. So I would go with Keenan Allen and Devonta Smith here. Who would you start this week? Caleb, Fields, or Daniel Jones? It's going to be Caleb Williams for me. Really, really like Caleb Williams this week in this matchup against the Commanders. Hollywood, Chase, Diggs, London, Jennings, Myers, pick 4. PPR from Ken. So this is going to be Ja'Marr Chase, Stephon Diggs, Drake London, and then Jakobi Meyers would be my 4 from this group. So I have, Diggs, absolutely love him. He's another player that I talked about on the video I did this, that we'll be doing after this, actually, where he's going to be a player I talk about with Stephon Diggs. He's been phenomenal since really kind of taking over as this team's number 1 wide receiver the last couple of weeks. So I like Diggs a lot. I think Chase is the biggest beneficiary of having Joe Flacco. I think he's going to be the guy that benefits the most. So I do like that. And Drake London's a top 10 wide receiver for me as well this week. So should I trade Wilson and ETN for Amon-Ra St. Brown? Yeah, I would do that. Honestly. Amon-Ra St. Brown has been phenomenal. Maybe try to get like a little extra thrown in. I always try to do that. I also don't like. I guess you're trading the 2. Never mind, you're not acquiring the 2. But maybe try to get a little something extra thrown in, like a bench stash running back or something like that. Maybe they have on their bench, something like that. I always like to try to get a little extra thrown in. But if they won't do it, and this is the only thing they would do it for, I would make that trade for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Chip. PPR, Jakobi Meyers or Shakir. I would go with Jakobi Meyers. It's just tough to trust Jakobi Meyers, or Khalil Shakir week to week, just because they spread the ball out so much in Buffalo. But I would go with Jakobi Meyers. Really good matchup for Jakobi Meyers this week against the Titans. Half-point PPR, Scadaboo or ETN. I would go with Scadaboo. Actually, he's somebody that I was, looking up today and putting everything together for my this video that I'm going to do. But Scadaboo is actually somebody I talk about. Even though the Tyrone Tracy's coming back, you have to remember, you have to look at it. Scadaboo still was playing 65% of the snaps, but he's had 90 or more total yards, and he's averaged 17 PPR points per game in the 3 games that Tyrone Tracy's been hurt. He's been heavily involved in the passing game, but here's something that stood out to me. The Eagles defense has actually struggled this season against opposing running backs, as they've allowed the 10th most rushing yards, the 11th most rushing touchdowns, the 8th most receiving yards, and the 3rd most receiving touchdowns, and the 8th most PPR points. So I know that's a lot, but they've pretty much been really bad against running backs, whether it's on the ground or through the air. You've definitely been able to target Philadelphia with running backs. So I think Scadaboo is still a pretty strong, top 15-ish running back play this week. Drop T-Law and Dart and stream Mac Jones and stash Purdy. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming this is not a super flex with this many options. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm fine with doing that. I mean, the 49ers quarterback play has been awesome so far this year. I mean, whether it's been Mac Jones, whether it's been Brock Purdy, yeah, I have no problem with doing either of those. I really like Mac Jones this week. Kanoa, Aloha, RJ Harvey, or Flournoy. Man, I would love to say RJ Harvey, honestly, but they haven't really. I mean, so like last week, he played only 20% of the snaps against Philadelphia. Now they were trailing a lot of that game, but he only saw 4 carries. He only ran 8 routes. He's just not involved in this offense right now. I know we had the game a couple weeks ago against Cincinnati, but even that, I mean, that was mainly because it was a blowout, or it was a pretty much a blowout in that game. They had the game well in control, and we saw 14 carries and 5 targets. But I mean, you go back to last week where it just kind of shifted right back to where, I mean, he just didn't do anything again. And so I think it's much harder to trust. But man, Ryan Flournoy, it feels very much chasey. But it's hard to say. Like, there's a lot there to like with Ryan Flournoy if he can continue to see opportunity. I mean, I think Jalen Tolbert has no business at all being involved in this offense anymore. Just he's never done anything. But I guess I would go with Flournoy and hope that, especially if KaVontae Turpin's out again and CeeDee Lamb's out again, they're going to need to throw the ball to somebody. And they clearly were trying to make it a point to get him the ball. And so I guess if all those things hold, then that's what I would do. I'd probably go with Flournoy in PPR. I just feel like there's maybe some better options out there. I don't know. But where do you think Mark Andrews gets moved? I think he goes to the Jags, but it wheels up for Isaiah Likely. I don't know. Like, there's always all this speculation of stuff going around about guys maybe getting traded, and we do this every year with the trade deadline. And the NFL trade deadline is always horrible. It's never really produced anything that we think it's going to. I feel like there's probably a higher likelihood. I don't feel like the Ravens have enough like weapons offensively to be out here trading away guys. Like, they have Zay Flowers, and Rashad Bateman's fine, but I mean, if he did get moved, yeah, I guess the Jaguars make some sense with like Britton Strange, situation, him getting hurt. But I don't know. I can't really think. There's nowhere else just right off the top of my head, unless an injury were to occur, that would happen. But I tend to believe that most of these guys aren't actually going to get traded. I continue to see people talk about, like Alvin Kamara being traded. And despite the fact that Jay Glazer and the Saints beat reporter have come out and basically said that Alvin Kamara, who has a no trade clause, has no issue or has no desire to be traded and would rather retire than actually get traded. He wants to end his career with the Saints. But people keep pushing this narrative, and I keep seeing all this stuff like rumors that he's going to get traded. I highly doubt he gets traded at this point. I got Keenan, Worthy, Waddle, and Sutton. I can only start 3. Who isn't starting? I guess for me, it's really close, but I would probably be Keenan at this point. Worthy's top 10 wide receiver. Waddle's top 15, 16 wide receiver, and Sutton's right there with him. So let's verify so I know I'm right. So I have all these guys pretty close. I have Keenan at wide receiver 21. Yeah, I have Sutton at 16. So I have Sutton at 16, Waddle at 18, and Xavier Worthy at wide receiver 10. One more week, and Rashee Rice is back. Also, Love or Stafford. So this is going to be Stafford. Now, which seems crazy because I absolutely love Jordan Love's situation this week going up against Cincinnati. The problem is I don't think they have to do a whole lot and they don't have to throw the ball that much. If the Packers can just run the ball the entire time, that's what they're going to do, and that's what I could see. So I'm actually a little bit lower on Jordan Love this week, and it's only that reason. The Bengals still have, even after trading for Joe Flacco, have by far the lowest implied team total this week. It's like 18 points or something like that. And so I just don't see, unless something crazy happens, that the Packers really get pushed here. And if they don't, then I just don't think Jordan Love has to do a whole lot. So I would go with Stafford, who's been phenomenal. And this offense is throwing the ball at a really high rate right now. And I mean, Stafford never gets the appreciation that he deserves, but he's been phenomenal. He ranks first in passing yards, second in passing touchdowns, and he has a really healthy 8.2 yards per attempt, and he's second in both deep ball attempts and red zone attempts. And over his last 2 games, he scored 27.4, 25.6, QB9 fantasy points per game. And obviously, this is just a phenomenal matchup against the Ravens, who have allowed 270 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns per game this year, allowing 25.4 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. So it would be Stafford for me. Can Wilson, Lamb, Johnson, Dobbs pick PPR pick 2? So it's going to be, I mean, if CeeDee Lamb plays, it would be CeeDee Lamb, but I don't think that he plays this week. I was kind of looking at that earlier to see if there was any new news. There really wasn't when it comes to him. Let's see. Didn't practice today. Let's see if there's anything else really quick so I don't speak out of both sides of my mouth. Stephen Jones says, I want a 5.3. The Pam, CeeDee Lamb, Booker, Smith, Guyton, and Kavontae Turpin are in a group of possible to be back in the next 2 weeks. So, yeah, I don't see CeeDee Lamb being back this week. Excuse me. It would be Quentin Johnson and Garrett Wilson for me. Sean, Troy Franklin, Romeo Dobbs, or Travis Hunter at my flex. I'm going to go with Romeo Dobbs, the touchdown merchant. Romeo Dobbs. All he does is score touchdowns. So with Darius Slayton being out, what do you think Wan'Dale Robinson has a big game with the expected grade script? I don't. I gave that stat there, Walito, about about the that game and Devonta Smith. But on the reverse side of that, Philadelphia has allowed the fewest fantasy points to slot wide receivers. Now it's possible that Wan'Dale plays more than just a slot, but he generally plays in the slot. And so I don't think this is a great matchup for Wan'Dale Robinson. And so, they can get the ball in his hand a bunch of times and just not be all that efficient. But in a PPR format, maybe he sees, 10, 12 targets. But I just don't really love the spot for him here. So I think he's like a wide receiver 4. Emilio, need a flex in a standard league. Marvin Harrison, Swift, Travion, Shaheed, or DeMarcado. With all these options, I would still go with Marvin Harrison Jr. and hope that he scores a touchdown like he did last week. Is Woody Marks a good pickup? Sure. I mean, it depends on who you're dropping. I mean, if he's sitting out there, I just feel like maybe it's a really shallow league, maybe it's a smaller league. So it would really depend on, who you're dropping him for. But yeah, I mean, in a 12-team league, absolutely, he shouldn't be sitting out there at all. Prater or McLaughlin, or McManus, excuse me. I would probably go with Matt Prater, assuming that's one thing I haven't checked on. Because I know the Tyler Bass. I know he was getting closer to return. They didn't open his window last week, and he's still uncertain for this week. So as long as Tyler Bass doesn't return, then I would go with Matt Prater. EC PPR rest of season. Who's the odd man out? Brian Thomas, Sutton, Rice, Pittman, Pearsall, or Ridley? Oh boy, it'd be Ridley for me. I mean, Ridley's been pretty average all year, though. I do like the matchup this week, and he is somebody that's going to be in the video that I put out tomorrow. But um, Ridley would be the odd man out here. This is where we're at, Kanoa. This is where we're at. We're having to start Joe Flacco, or it would be T Law for me, and hopefully he continues to run like he did last week, like a madman. Kamala is getting traded soon. Okay, interesting. I think you meant Kamara, but I don't. I don't know. That's not what everybody else. That's not what people that with inside information that are generally not wrong very often. Like someone like Jay Glazer's very rarely ever wrong about any of his information, and that's just not the information that's being put out on that side of it. So, Harrison, Gray or Caleb or Darnold. I love Sam Darnold this week, but I also love Caleb Williams, and both of them are players I'll be talking about on this said video that I'll be dropping. But Caleb Williams is going to be the guy for me in that situation. Love Caleb Williams. Dobbs, Pollard, and Ridley bench one. Probably bench Romeo Dobbs for everything that I just mentioned earlier about that game. It's close between all three of these. But I mean, this is one of the rare, like, really good matchups, like where like you could see, like I know the Titans won last week, but that was super fluky how that all went down in that game. This feels like a game that like the Titans could actually like get on track with this game against the Raiders and how bad their defense has been. And so I still would probably go with Pollard in that scenario, who actually scored like the most he scored all year, which was 14.6. Saw one of the kicker rankings. Yes. Right here. And one situation we are going to have to look at too is going to have to be Joey Sly, who actually has my kicker 4, who didn't practice today due to a calf issue. And so I know we already had Spencer Schrader, which I need to update this. But with the Michael Badgley news, after Spencer Schrader got ruled out, Michael Badgley was signed. Badgley, like I think it's like with this offense is like a solid top 15 kicker. But the thing with Badgley is he's never really been asked. I don't think he really has much of a big leg. He's never really been asked to kick a lot of 50-plus yard field goals. And he started like 2 seasons. And he only has 13 field goal attempts on field goals of 50-plus yards. And he's only connected on 5 of them. So like that's certainly something that like worries me a little bit with him. But even so, with this offense, still think he's going to be a pretty solid kicker option. But just wanted to mention that, and then the Joey Sly thing. They signed Matthew Wright today to their practice squad, so that's also something to monitor with Joey Sly. Just come here for all the top kicker information that everybody's searching for. 12-team PPR: Baker, Gibbs, Jacobs, London, Ladd, Kraft, Debo, Packers, DST. We're really riding on the hopes of the Packers with this team, but love Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, top 5 running back for me. And then Tucker Kraft is also a very solid option as well. The Bengals, surprisingly, or not surprisingly, are terrible against opposing tight ends. And I like the Packers defense. Baker, once again, just been phenomenal this year. I think he's like QB5 in fantasy points per game. Jahmyr Gibbs in the matchup against the Chiefs. London, top 10. This is a really good team because I have London and Debo as top 12 wide receivers as well. So really, really solid team. Emilio, New England, Chargers, or Dallas defense. For me, I'm going to go with New England here in this matchup against the Saints. Like, and honestly, the Saints actually haven't been terrible, like in terms of like allowing fantasy points, opposing defenses and stuff. That hasn't really been but what has been is they're a very safe option. New England is, and also I talked about them in the kicker video the defensive kicker video I did, but They also have really good upcoming matchup. I think it's like the Titans and Browns after this. So New England's not just like a this week option. I think they're really solid moving forward as well. Over on Twitch, start two, flex one, Javante, Kyron, Cook, Barkley. Oh my goodness. I have to start Javante with how good he's been. I mean, he's been phenomenal. I'm starting Barkley. I don't love it. I mean, but I'm starting Barkley again this matchup against the Giants, and then I would go with James Cook as well. I guess Kyron would be the odd man out just because he's much more like touchdown or bust. But obviously, it's non PPR, so I mean, we're hunting touchdowns. But I don't know too with that one because they're playing the Ravens, and the Ravens have been awful. The Ravens defense is terrible, and that's tough. I know why you're asking the question. um, I think that's what I do. I go James Cook, Barkley, and Javante. That's tough though, sitting Kyron against the Ravens. Top five, half-point PPR, flex one, Brees Hall, ETN, Sutton, Marvin Harrison, or BTJ. Cortland Sutton's probably going to see Sauce Gardner, but Brees Hall, don't love the matchup against the Broncos. ETN against Seattle. I'd probably go with Travis Etienne, honestly, of this group. I do think Brian Thomas is interesting, but I would go with Travis Etienne here. Love Fields or Knicks. I would still go with Justin Fields. And we kind of saw it last week, right? For like 3/4 of that game against the Cowboys. I mean, he was terrible. He wasn't doing anything, and it just exploded. But his rushing upside is going to give him a really safe floor every single week. So I would go with Justin Fields. We already got that one. Traded Marvin Brees for Achane. Have plenty of depth at wide receiver. How do you feel about that amid Brees trade rumors? I mean, it really would depend on where Brees wound up, right? Like, it depends on really the spot. But I've heard people talk about the Chargers. I don't see the Chargers. I mean, Amarian Hampton's back in 4 weeks. Like, all the reports are that he's going to be ready to go as soon as the IR's up. So I can't see them going out and making that kind of a trade for something. I mean, I guess you could. I mean, Brees Hall would only be he's a free agent after this year. So, I mean, I guess that's something you could look to do. And then, but it would, if that happened, I mean, it would kind of kill Amarian Hampton because I think they would just become like a split like we were seeing with Najee Harris. But this trade is phenomenal, though. I mean, getting Devon Achane and giving up Marvin Harrison Jr., who's going to be pretty up and down, and then Brees. So I love that move. Said CMC Jacoby for Josh Jacobs, Ted Franklin. I'll drop my team for context. I don't know if there's any context if we're trading Christian McCaffrey, but we'll look. So PPR, start two, flex, field, CMC, Chase, Brown, Harvey, Pacheco, Benson, Carter, Diggs, like Jacoby McBride. What happened to the wide receivers, Nino? I mean, I see obviously, like with your first pick, you took Christian McCaffrey. Your second pick, you probably took, just looking at this, either McBride or Chase Brown, and with your third pick would have been the other. But I don't think this. I don't know how much this helps you though. Honestly, like Christian McCaffrey, I feel like should be like King's ransom, and then having to throw in Jacoby Myers as well. Like Jacoby Myers is like still a top 36 wide receiver, top 30-ish wide receiver, and Franklin is completely boomer bust. So then it's like really comes down to like it's like a Jacobs and Tet for CMC and Jacoby. Like I couldn't do that. You should be able to get so much more for Christian McCaffrey. I mean, Christian McCaffrey legitimately is like an RB1 and a wide receiver one all in one player. Like you're getting two players for one. Like if you just isolated his pass catching work, like he's literally just his pass catching work is wide receiver one numbers. I couldn't do it. Like I need way more for Christian McCaffrey. Now, if you're getting Christian McCaffrey, I'm hitting accept as fast as I can. For this week, would you drop Cam Little for Pinheiro or Myers? Yeah, I'm fine, totally fine with that. And it would be for Pinheiro. Pinheiro has been a dog since coming over. Jelly of the month: Doubtland, Dobbs, or waivers, or Doubtland, Dobbs, or Bourne waivers. If not, put in for Josh Downs or Coker off IR, and I have Ted McMillan. I mean, yeah, if you could put it in for Josh Downs, I would do that. I don't really want Coker and Ted McMillan. I don't want two wide receivers from that team, from the Panthers. Will, first of all, big game this week for Mizzou, right? Against Alabama. I'm really upset that they got the 11 a.m. game, though. I feel like they should have got the prime time spot, but big game for Missouri this week against Alabama. What's up? Pick 2: Swift, Montgomery, Spears, Cup, Coleman, Charbonnet, or DeMercado PPR. I'm going to go with Swift and Keon Coleman here. So the Lions are playing the Chiefs, and the Chiefs' run defense has been really good this year. They have done a pretty good job against pretty much every single running back this year. And so I don't necessarily love Montgomery. And I know Montgomery had a big game last week, but that was very narrative based, and that was very much. And we all know that Dan Campbell is a player's coach, and it was his first time back in Cincinnati with having with his sister and everything else. Like, you just knew that he was going to try to feed Dave Montgomery, and exactly what he did. But in every other game, it's really not been the case. He's basically played like 35% of the snaps. And so I would go with Swift, and then I would go with Keon Coleman would be the ones I would go with. Definitely tough at the moment. I'm sitting Cook. I appreciate the insight. I mean, I get it, but like, James Cook has been a top 4 running back this year. I know he wasn't great last week against the Patriots, but I just, and I wonder who else was that? Javonte, Kyron, Barkley. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a tough situation. Trade Pickens for Rice. I have CD on the bench. Yes. They're Westcott. Yeah. I'm doing that. When Rashee Rice comes back next week, he is very quickly going to be a top 12 wide receiver in the league. Like, he is going to just command a ton of targets in this offense. We've seen it every single time he's been healthy on this team. I think actually the break, the 6 weeks off, is going to help him even more. Just being completely ready to go. He was already ready to go in the preseason, but the 6 week time off, I think it's going to help him a little bit more. And so I would make that move for Rashee Rice. Like, I've said it for the last 2 weeks. Like, he's one of the best buys you possibly can get. And so yes, I would do that in a heartbeat. Easy thing, I could maybe get Bucky for some combo of Kamara, Ridley, Mooney. Bucky team has bad record. Who would you offer? I mean, you could try, but I don't think that's enough to get Bucky Irving, to be honest. Like, I feel like that's like trading a lot of your like bench assets for Bucky Irving. You'd have to probably put in something better than that, especially with like Ridley. I know Ridley's coming off a solid game, but Mooney hasn't done anything all year. Kamara really hasn't been great. Like, I think you'd have to add in something else. I don't mind the idea of trying to buy low on Bucky Irving with him set to miss another week, but I think it would probably take you a little bit more. EC. Oh, we already got that. Oh, okay. Yeah. No, never mind. That makes a lot more sense. Totally get that. It's been a rough couple of weeks for injuries, hasn't it? Like, I feel like the first 3 weeks of the year was like smooth sailing, not a lot of injuries. Everybody's happy, because there's not a lot of injuries going on. Waivers are pretty much dead. And then these last 2 weeks have been kind of a bloodbath, really, for running backs. But I mean, the wide receivers have been mixing there too with Malik Neighbors and stuff, injuries. But like, this last couple of weeks, like, can we slow down, fantasy gods, on hurting everybody? Because like, it all happened, like, feels like all at once. Alberto got offered Saquon for McMillan and Odunze. Should I take it? I don't think I would. I don't think I would. Honestly. I mean, Saquon just hasn't been Saquon this year. Like, he hasn't been explosive. The offensive line hasn't been very good. That's been a big problem. He's kind of fallen back a little bit. Like, and he hasn't been terrible. He's averaging 16.1 PPR points per game. Like that. Like, I'm not trying to say that he's been awful, but like his numbers fall a little bit more in line with kind of what he was a little bit more on the Giants. And the other frustrating thing is he's not really being involved in the passing game, which he never really is all that much. Like he's had a couple games where he's seen 5 targets, like, but he's just been fine, right? Like 18.4, 17.4, 17.4, 17.8. Like the touchdowns are going to continue to be there for him, but the ceiling hasn't been there. And his expected fantasy points per game is right on par with pretty much what he's producing right now. And so, like, Odunze's been a top 10 wide receiver this year. Ted McMillan hasn't been as good, but he's still a top 36 wide receiver. If the quarterback, Bryce Young, could figure things out, I think that would help a lot for Ted McMillan, because Ted McMillan's putting up the yardage. He's just not scoring touchdowns right now. But I don't know. I feel like you could get a little bit more than that for that package. Like I said, I mean, Rome Odunze has legitimately been a top 5 wide receiver this year. I guess I guess at the end of the day, Alberto, I think really for me, it would be like, what does the rest of your team look like? Just picked up Pinheiro, Bread, and Kendrick Miller in both leagues. Yeah, Pinheiro is a dog. He's been phenomenal. Big game for Z. Yeah, this is probably like the big one of the big. It feels like the kind of like the 2023, I think, game against LSU. Like I think it feels very similar for Missouri this week. But and I know a lot of people are upset that Missouri's not getting a lot of credit, but um, I don't think they've had the schedule yet. I mean, I know KU as a solid win, South Carolina is like a decent win, but um, the upcoming schedule for Missouri is going to tell us everything we need to know about how good they are. And in true Mizzou fashion, I really hope they don't let us down. Pinheiro or Gay, rest of season. Rest of season, I probably would go with Matt Gay. And I've been on Matt Gay since like the beginning of the season. Like before the season started, he was like one of my top sleepers because like he was only rostered like 8% of leagues or something like that. But Dan Quinn just always is top 5 in field goal attempts every single year. And so Matt Gay is going to have some weeks where he's frustrating because he's a little bit inaccurate. But I still think that Matt Gay is a really solid option for the rest of the year. Jordan, who would just trade Josh Allen and Gibbs for London, Saquon, and Jordan Love, full PPR? It's probably Josh Allen and Jahmyr Gibbs, honestly, at this point. It's really close because I mean Drake London is a really solid, obviously wide receiver, but Jordan Love is more in like that 12 to 15 range in terms of quarterback. Josh Allen's obviously the number. I mean, is always continue to be the number one fantasy quarterback, and then Gibbs is RB1 or 2 for me. I mean, rest of season. So uh, I would still lean Josh Allen and Gibbs. A good point about not rostering both Tet and Coker. Yeah, I can't roster both. I have no problem with stashing Jalen Coker whatsoever, but I don't want both Panthers wide receivers. Drop Woody Marks for Gainwell. No, I'd rather have Woody Marks. I know what Gainwell's done has been good, and Gainwell's going to continue to have a really solid role in the passing game. He's seen like 4 more targets in every single game, but I also think there's a much higher likelihood that Woody Marks just takes over the backfield. And I feel like at some point the Steelers want to give a look to Caleb Johnson to see exactly what they have in him after spending what was it, like a 3rd round pick on him. But so it would be Woody Marks for me. Vanilla Rice, Pinheiro or Bates? It's gonna be Pinheiro, real easily. I think it was frustrating with Bates. Like he should be a phenomenal kicker because he kicks for the Lions, he kicks indoors. But it's just Dan Campbell's so aggressive that it just takes away a lot of his opportunities. Harrison Gay, thoughts on Devonta Smith this week? I already kind of said it, but I will say a little bit again, just like a little bit of the last part, or you can watch the video tomorrow where I'll be talking about all these positions, my favorite must-start plays, but Devonta Smith is on that. But I will just say that Devonta Smith has a phenomenal matchup. The Giants have allowed the third most PPR points to opposing wide receivers, and they've allowed the most fantasy points to slot wide receivers, where Devonta Smith has run over 50% of his routes and ranks fourth among all wide receivers in routes from the slot. So if he plays, it's going to be if he plays, it's going to be Joey Sly. If he doesn't, it probably would be Will Lutz. Any worries with the Godwin news today? I mean, I have already had worries with Chris Godwin, but yeah, I've already had issues with him. I mean, I don't. It's going to take later in the year. I think even if he's able to remain healthy, when it comes to Chris Godwin, I know he didn't practice today again. I mean, that's obviously the injury he had, but with fibula. I mean, I don't think he's going to look like Chris Godwin this year. Let me put it this way. So he's never been somebody I've been super excited about. ET, what's good? TFA, who do you like better as a flex and non PPR between Hassan Haskins, Wandell, or Trick? It's going to be Haskins for me. Just match up. I think he's going to be the goal line back, especially in a non PPR standard format. I'm going to want Hassan Haskins. Trade Travion Henderson, Brees Hall for Dak and Genty. Need another quarterback in a super flex. Oh, and a super flex. Yeah, I'm doing that. I mean, assuming this isn't like a dynasty league, I'm doing that without. Well, even if it was dynasty, what am I talking about? I would do it with getting Ashton Genty. But if you can get Dak and Genty for Travion Henderson and Brees Hall, I'm doing that without hesitation, especially in a super flex. Eric, hey guys, how are we doing? How are you doing, Eric? Alberto, I have Bijan, Genty, and Jason. I would start Saquon as flex, but I traded Tunze out. I would have to start DK. This is 8-man. That's why I feel so stacked. Also, McMillan is on my bench. Yeah, but I feel like then you become kind of. I mean, if you're having to start DK Metcalf, like I don't feel great about that at all. I almost feel like you're getting worse. I mean, you still have Bijan and Genty, right, and JSN, and so I know you're still saying you start Saquon in the flex, but having to start DK, I think actually is a net negative for you. I mean, DK is going to have some spike weeks, but there's going to be a lot of down weeks there for him too. ECS are definitely trying to buy low on Bucky not playing, and that fancy desperate for a win. Well, also weak at wide receivers. I also have CD off limits, BTJ, Rice, Sutton, Pittman, Pearsall, and those above. Let me scroll back up. There it is. I think I could maybe get Bucky from. Let's see who it was. Oh, Kamara, Ridley, or Mooney. Okay, yeah. I mean, maybe like try Kamara and I wish he was coming off a good game. I would say maybe try Kamara and Cortland Sutton if the guy's like super desperate, and still throw in Ridley or Booty. Because I'm not trading CD obviously, and then I'm not trading Rashee Rice either. We didn't wait this long to all of a sudden trade Rashee Rice, especially excuse me when he's going to be out or he's going to be back next week against the Raiders of all teams too. And I don't want to trade back on Pittman. He's been really good. And then Pearsall, like I could probably actually Pearsall might actually not be a bad option either. Just because like I really wonder how much all this is going to look when you have Kittle, Pearsall, Jawan Jennings, and then eventually Brandon Ayuk back in this offense. Like it's going to be very, very crowded. And so like moving on from what the 49ers stuff isn't necessarily a bad idea either. Once all these guys are back, it sounds like Kittle should be back next week, and then I would assume Ayuk is probably back somewhere around. I would assume at least by week 9 or week 10. So um, at the latest. So yeah, maybe even instead of Sutton, you do Pearsall in that. And if you had to do, I mean, if you had to do like Pearsall and Sutton, I wouldn't be upset with that either, honestly. And then throw in like Mooney for Bucky, because I mean Bucky should be back here shortly. Who's the RB2? Kenneth Walker, RB1 slot, Charbonnet, Harvey, Haskins, Vidal, or Tootin? Man. I don't want to start at both Seahawks running backs, so I would go with Son Haskins and hope he scores a touchdown. I mean, that's the role he's going to play. Eric, my team is a shambles due to injuries, 12 T PPR, 200 max, 200 receivers, 1 tight end. Rashad White. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully you started Dowdle, though, last week. I will say that. I mean, he was phenomenal. But I would go with Dowdle and Rashad White. I actually have Dowdle as a top 12 running back this week, and I have Rashad White as a high-end RB2. And then 2 wide receivers. We're going to start Jamar Chase. And I guess we'll go with the options you have here. We'll go with McConkey. Your tight end, Laporta or Waller. I'll go with Sam Laporta against the Chiefs. And then I'm going to flex. I'll flex Chase Brown. I think one actually area where it could actually help this offense, I think actually is having Joe Flacco back there. He is another quarterback that is a serial check down quarterback. And so like Chase Brown could continue to see or start seeing even more targets in the passing game. And so I would go with Chase Brown here as the other one. Start Brown or stack Seahawks. Okay. And sir, you don't have to put it in here 3 times. I'll well, we answer everything for sure. But so start Chase Brown or stack Seahawks. So are you saying when you say stack Seahawks, are you saying start both Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker? Is that what we're saying? Okay. No, I mean it's very similar to what I said. I would go with Chase Brown and I would go with Kenneth Walker. I don't want to start both Seattle running backs. I get it that Charbonnet has been like the goal line back and getting those opportunities, but I really don't want to play both of them together. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense, honestly. And this isn't necessarily a spot for that. I think if this was a little bit better of a game environment, maybe I would be okay with it. But I probably would rather just go Chase Brown and Kenneth Walker instead of starting both the Seahawks running backs. One, should I drop Kyler Murray for Sam Darnold? Yes. Or do I just keep sitting Kyler Murray on the bench and drop Kyle Pitts for Darnold in case Murray doesn't start? Got Mason Taylor and Kittle on IR. Oh, okay. Actually, I probably would just drop Kyle Pitts. Honestly, with you having Kittle, I mean, like I said, Kittle should be back next week. So should be fine there. Mason Taylor's a fine stash, anyways. It really depends on how many bench spots you have. Like if you have like 6, 7 bench spots where you can support having multiple quarterbacks, then I'm fine with having 2 and like especially quarterbacks like this. But the only thing I will say that would be frustrating with Sam Darnold is there has been a lot of he's been super efficient, but he hasn't really had to throw the ball a ton. There's been plenty of I think he only has 1 game this year where he has over 30 pass attempts, maybe 2. But I do love Sam Darnold though, and Sam Darnold's been phenomenal. So like if you had to drop Kyler Murray, I'm fine with doing it for Sam Darnold. But I also, if you want to run 2, I'm also fine with dropping Kyle Pitts, depending on how many bench spots you have to have both quarterbacks as well. Alberto, thank you, sir, or thanks, sir. Just subscribe. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys all rocking with us. If you haven't, hit the like button, hit the subscribe. It takes you 5 seconds. I appreciate it. I always forget to say that because I'm just here to answer questions and I forget to self promote. I don't do a whole lot of that. But yes, if you could hit the like, hit the subscribe button, we really appreciate it. We are going to start Not that I think matters that much because I don't really care if people do it or not. But I did. I don't think it's come out yet. I don't think it's started. I set in for it through YouTube was to have memberships. Um, Mainly just because I know a lot of people will want to super chat, and if people don't want to do that, I just open it up as to where people want to. I think it's like $3.99 a month for a membership whenever it comes and hits the channel, and then basically it'll be you can answer. I'm going to answer those first. So instead of having to wait, especially on some of these nights when it takes forever for me to get to your question, where you can just jump in real quick, answer your question, and go about your business. Again, I don't care if people do it. I'm probably not even going to really advertise it that much because I don't want people to feel obligated to have to pay money for fantasy football advice. But and I do know instead of having to send $8, $9, $10, whatever it is for a super chat, if people just want to do that, $3.99 a month, be able to come in and ask questions anytime, I figured I'd at least open it up. So, anyways, that is something that should be showing up here soon. But and I am going to start doing lives too on Sunday mornings. I've had baseball this entire time, so I haven't been able to do it, but I should be back again this week, and then the next 2 weeks it should be good. Anyways, I'll stop self promoting. So, Eric, should I drop someone for Haskins or Vidal? My team is bad. Plays 2 and 3. Eric, what is the rest? I know you asked the. Okay, so yeah, that was your roster. I mean, as far as your bench goes, like I don't think there's anybody on there that I want to drop for either one of those running backs. Like I don't think these running backs are as good, honestly, as like Michael Carter and Amari DiMercado. I just don't. Like maybe Vidal ends up being that, but like Haskins, we just know what he is. He's a plotter. Like at least Michael Carter shows like it has some juice. We've seen him in situations where he's had opportunities before, like going back to last year, Michael Carter got the starting job at the end of last year. Like we don't really know at all. And I think there's a better chance this team just throws the ball a lot more. Like I don't mind stashing one of those guys or playing them if you absolutely had to this week just because of the matchup. But I mean, you have Rashad White, you have Chase Brown, you have Rico Dowdle, Jalen Warren. Like I don't think you ever play one of those guys. I don't think you ever start one of those guys over any of these running backs. I know Chuba Hubbard is eventually going to come back, and I don't know if you could put this genie back in the bottle with Rico Dowdle. I mean, it's a rare thing for a running back to rush for 200 yards. And so, like, he looks really good. And if he does it again this week against the Cowboys, like, there's a scenario where Rico Dowdle ends up actually maybe, at the very least, we're talking about a 50-50 split with Chuba Hubbard. If not, it's possible that he could take a little bit more. He's just been really good. And so I don't think there's anybody there you have to take. So I mean, yeah, so it's a possibly another stream or response. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of. I think there are some out there that just don't like really answer questions, and that's the only reason I even do this live is to answer all the questions. So, I mean, there's been nights we've been. I mean, whenever Cody was here too, where we would be on here for like I think the longest one we did was like 3.5 hours, just answering all the questions. It's what we do. That's what we're here for. So I'm going to answer all of them regardless. But yeah, and I appreciate the sub, and I appreciate you being here. And like I said. And if you haven't, you can, if you go to any one of our videos, you can join our Discord too. It's absolutely as well, where you can get questions answered. But Elder Leo, not sure if you spoke on it, but what are your thoughts on Haskins? So Cliff Notes again. I've talked about this a couple times, but I will just say when it comes to Haskins, I think this is like a Michael Carter situation, a Michael Carter light situation. I think he's the early down back. I think he's going to be the goal line back. I think Vidal is going to be the the PP or the third down back, the change of pace back, and I think that's how it's going to play out this week. Now they did bring in Naheem Hines, sign him to the practice squad. I don't have a lot of hope for that. Naheem Hines hasn't really been a thing in quite some time, but so I that's the way that I see it. Now I will say it's a phenomenal matchup against this week against the Dolphins. The Dolphins' run defense has been for Haskins has been terrible. So 4-1 in my home league. Hit on a lot of late picks in that league. I drafted Javonte, Keenan, Justin Fields, Jalen Warren, and Pittman. Yeah, I mean, hit a home run. Javonte has been easily the best value, I think, of any player that I can think of off the top of my head, where they were drafted compared to how they're playing right now. But so I would go with yeah, I mean go with, but yeah, I mean this is a lot of why. I mean that you've been so good because I mean, Javonte has been phenomenal. Keenan Allen was a tremendous value as well. Fields, obviously, everybody loved, and then Jalen Warren has outplayed expectations. So was Michael Pittman. Everybody was on the Josh Downs train heading into this year and continuing to push that train. And Michael Pittman just flew under the radar and was like picked like a round later than Josh Downs was, and has outplayed him. If Kamara doesn't play this week, do I pick up Kendre or play Chase Brown? If Kamara were to miss, I would play Kendre Miller because Kendre Miller is going to be the guy. Like, I think at this point, I think Kendre Miller is probably the better pure running back on this team. And I say that, I mean like runner of the football. I don't mean overall because that's still Alvin Kamara. But I do think that we're to a stage in Alvin Kamara's career where I think he's much more useful as just a pass catcher out of the backfield. I don't think he's like quite as good between the tackles anymore, where Kendre Miller has looked like that. I think that's why you've seen such a significant rise in his touches, especially on the ground. And you're seeing this pretty drastic split into where Kamara is being utilized more on passing downs. And so, but yes, I would do that if Kendre Miller, or excuse me, if Alvin Kamara were to miss. Trade Warren and McLaurin for Waller and Keenan Allen. I also have Jake Ferguson. If you have Jake Ferguson, then there's no reason for you to trade for Darren Waller whatsoever. Like, I think Darren Waller is a very short window type player. I mean, if you remember, before the season started, he already suffered an injury. He's always dealt with injuries his entire career. And so, like, I think this is a very short, like, try to maximize as long as you can. I would not trade Jalen Warren and Terry McLaurin for Darren Waller and Keenan, especially when you have Jake Ferguson, who's been an absolute baller. Debo and Kenneth for Josh Jacobs and RJ Harvey. I want the Debo and Kenneth Walker side on that. 2 QB league, just traded Rattler and Woody Marks for Breece Hall. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I'm assuming Rattler is probably just a bench stash for you. So love that move very much. Oh, we already got that one. Juan, who for my wide receiver 2, 3, tight end, and flex spot? Krosky, Merritt, Kenneth Gainwell, Charbonnet, Travion. So let me see before I answer, because I really want to put your flex spot as JCM. But Flournoy, Addison, Debo, Quentin Johnson, Devontae. Okay, see, that's where the problem. See, that's why I should read. That's why I read. So your wide receiver 2 and 3 and flex are going to be Debo Samuels, Quentin Johnson, and Devontae Adams. And then your tight end, I would go with Kyle Pitts here, especially with Kittle on AR. Like, this is already a lot of tight ends. But okay, so if we can fit somebody else in, then I think is what you're saying. Like, for all 3 of your wide receivers, I want to start with all 3 of the wide receivers, and then I would flex JCM if that's what we're saying. Then that's what I would do. I would go with Debo, Quentin Johnson, Adams as your 3 wide receivers, and then I would flex. And I would flex Corey Krosky Merritt. Johnny traded Breece and Debo for Chuba. Already have Gibbs and White, and with Henderson on bench, but my wideouts were Neighbors, AJ Brown, rest in peace, and Rome. Good trade for a 10-man league. Yeah, I have no problem doing that whatsoever, especially getting Debo. I mean, Debo's been awesome. So I would go with and Chuba's going to come back, and like they paid Chuba a decent amount of money this offseason. So when I say that like Rico Dowdle's going to take over, this doesn't mean that Rico Dowdle's. When I say that, I don't mean Rico Dowdle's going to start playing 80% of the snaps and he's just going to be the absolute workhorse. I don't see that happening, but Chuba's still going to have a role, and this is still a really good. Let me rephrase that. I about to say this is a really good offense. This is a really good offense for running backs. The Dave Canales offense continues to produce really solid running back play from his system. And so I have no problem with getting Chuba in this. But Debo, even Breece for Debo, I think is very fair. The Saints whisper, the Saints fan, we found out there's actually 2 of them now. that was in here last week, I believe. So wasn't aware. But anyways, Kamara was limited with an ankle injury or ankle issue in practice today, but not worrying about it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried. Especially, I don't care about Wednesday practice reports. Like I've said, I mean, so many guys sit and just don't play. Eric, much appreciated. I like the way you flow with your show. I just subscribe. Appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. I'm stashing Trey Tucker for a bit now. It's time to drop him for a viable flex since Gino isn't doing much. Elder, I think it really just depends on who you're dropping him for. I think is what it comes down to. I'll say that over and over again. That's what it comes down to for me. Like you can drop him, but I mean he's still been okay. And I will say, when it comes to Trey Tucker, he's actually somebody I briefly spoke about this week. But I mean Trey Tucker's like this is what I basically have down in my notes for the video I'm going to do after this. But he has scored double-digit fantasy points in 3 of the last 5 weeks. He also runs 95% of the routes, which is also going to lead to some opportunity having meaningful fantasy production. With Brock Bowers banged up, there is a lot of weapons, or there isn't a lot of weapons in this offense. Excuse me. Trey Tucker should see around 6 to 8 targets this week and faces a Titan secondary that has allowed the 9th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So while I get that it hasn't really been great for this passing offense, I will say, at least with this matchup against the Titans, Trey Tucker does make some sense. But again, it really would come down to what else is available on the waiver wire if you were going to drop him. Burn, who should I start at flex? Matthew Golden, Henderson, or Higgins? Oh boy, I can't. As much as I love the matchup, it just worries. I mean, with when it like, I think there's going to be a spot here where finally Matthew Golden just actually catches one of these long passes that Jordan Love is trying to throw to him. And I guess he's been a little bit better recently, but now we have Christian Watson starting to work his way back for a couple of weeks before he gets hurt again. I still would probably go with T. Higgins, though, with the options you have here. I mean, I guess with Joe Flacco coming in, maybe this offense is a little bit more reinvigorated and there's some energy in the room. So I would love to say Travion Henderson, right? I mean, but I don't know what that man has to do to get more touches in the backfield. I just don't get it. It's been absolutely insane to me that that the way that he's been utilized and that it doesn't matter. I mean, Antonio Gibson tears the ACL, still doesn't really see that many more touches. Ramondre Stevenson fumbles 3 times already in 5 games, still doesn't want to give him any opportunity. Like, I don't know what the dude has to do. I don't know why he's been in the doghouse for as long as he has, but it doesn't make any sense to me. So it's been pretty frustrating with Travion Henderson. Mad Family Gaming, AJ Brown or Chris Olave? I would still go with AJ Brown, and I totally get why this is even a question. Hopefully the squeaky wheel narrative, all that stuff. I know that after this week, I believe there was the reports that Saquon and Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown had a long, 3-hour private meeting and that went on and everything else. But I think AJ Brown's due, and so phenomenal matchup against the Giants. The Giants secondary is not very good. They give a ton of deep passes up, so I would still go with AJ Brown over Chris Olave. Move Jamar Chase and Derrick Henry to get Deebo Samuel and Gibbs. Oh man. That's crazy. I probably don't do that. And it seems crazy because I love Jahmyr Gibbs, but I feel like it's a very short-term move. Because like the way I see it is like I do think that Joe Flacco is going to help Jamar Chase. And I still think Jamar Chase can be like a top 12 wide receiver, top 15 wide receiver rest season. But I also think Derrick Henry, once Lamar Jackson's back, is probably going to return back. And if you look at the Ravens' schedule now, the rest of the season, once they get back from their bye, I know there's that concern with like, oh, well, they're going to go 1-5 if Lamar doesn't play this week. But their schedule after after their bye is like a dream, super easy schedule for them. There's a couple games mixed in there for them, but my goodness, does the schedule really open up for the Ravens? And like I can see a lot of big games coming from Derrick Henry after their bye, because they play the the Rams this week, obviously. Then they go on bye. Then they come back from their bye and they get the Bears, which is not a bad matchup whatsoever for Derrick Henry. But then after that, you get the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Browns, the Jets, the Bengals, the Steelers, the Bengals again, the Ravens, and then the Packers and the fantasy championship. Like this is their schedule for the rest of the year. Point me in the direction of like the really tough matchup where Derrick Henry's not going to be super effective. Like maybe the Browns, because the Browns defense has been really good against the run. But where else? Like, I mean, the Bears, the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Browns, the Jets, the Bengals, the Steelers, the Bengals again, the Patriots, and the Packers. Like, there's a really, really, really good chance that the Ravens just rip off 7 or 8 wins in a row after their bye. And I think with Lamar healthy and Derrick Henry is probably the best buy low right now there is. So, as crazy as it is, I think I'm going to hold Ja'Marr Chase and Derrick Henry. I think you really maybe words less about it. Sub, appreciate that. Really appreciate being here. Ethan, should I trade JCM for Brees Hall? I don't think so. And I know that seems crazy, but I just think as of right now, I know there's this scenario. I know there's scenario, and I know there's reports out there that Brees Hall could get traded. I totally understand that. I really, really do. But I think there's also a scenario where he doesn't get traded. And then if that's the case, then I would like JCM. I don't think he put that back in the bottle. What he's able to do when he's been given touches, he's been super efficient with his touches. He's probably not going to be as involved in the passing game, but that could still change. But like he is electric with the ball in his hands. Every time he's been given touches, he is blown up. And so I think now with Chris Rodriguez out of the way, Chris Rodriguez touches didn't come until the game was completely over. And I think 4 of his 5 touches came with when Trey Lance was playing. And so I think I'd rather have JCM than Brees Hall, which seems crazy to me to say, but like I just think with him on the Jets, there's gonna be some good weeks for sure. But then there's also gonna be weeks where Justin Fields just takes away the volume and takes away opportunity and takes away goal line touches from Brees Hall. So I think he's gonna be a little bit trickier to mess with. So I think I would still go with JCM. Trade Derrick Henry for Lamar and Trevion Henderson. I already have Ramondre or Ramondre or Derrick Henry and DJ Moore for Lamar and Swift. Who do you have a quarterback right now? That's the real question. Oh wait, you already said it down there. Let me get this one real quick. This is the easy one. Jalen Glenn. This is easily going to be JCM for me with the likelihood of Lamar Jackson out as far as Zay as a flex this week. It'd be JCM. I have JCM as RB14, as you can see right here. So I would stick with JCM. 2 quarterback league. Other quarterbacks are Allen, Kyler, Daniel Jones. Also looking to trade Daniel Jones for DK or Quentin Johnston. What does the rest of your team look like, Bronson? That's what I would want to know. Like, what does your running backs look like if you traded Derrick Henry? Stash Reed or Ayuk? Uh, I guess Ayuk. Just this offense throws the ball at a really high rate, but it's not really encouraging that Brandon Ayuk isn't back already. We've seen wide receivers that have been out for a really long time that were out for a shorter period of time or they got hurt later in the season last year that are already back. Like Stephon Diggs is a great example of that. That's already back and producing, and Brandon Ayuk is not. Like it is definitely concerning with Brandon Ayuk, but I think just as all with the offense and how much they throw, like I said, the 49ers are first in the league in pass attempts per game. They're averaging almost 42 attempts per game. There's going to be plenty of volume to go around. So I think I would still go with Ayuk. Rocket Man, Mason Taylor, Troy Franklin, or Downs at flex. Can't trust Green Bay wide receivers. Yeah. They're super hard to trust. I probably would go with, I mean, is this a PPR league first? I guess I should ask. Because if it's a PPR format, I'd probably go Josh Downs. We saw 8 targets last week, um, which is encouraging. Brees Hall is an RB1, LOL. In what world is Brees Hall is a RB1? He's not in this season. He's not an RB1. He's averaging 13 fantasy points per game. He's the RB22 in fantasy points per game. He's almost an RB3 more than so that he is an RB1. Bronson, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 3 flex. Other running backs for Javonte, Jacobs, Bill, Ramondre, and Brian Robinson. Wide receiver Chase, Nico, Devontae, Olave, Cup, DJ Moore, and Godwin. So, yeah, I mean, I think you can withstand the hit with Javonte and Jacobs, and then down JCM. And it is a 2 quarterback league, like you said. So yeah, I think I do that. If I can trade Derrick Henry and get Lamar and Travion Henderson, I make that move. If that's what it takes, for sure. Trade JSN and Achane for CeeDee Lambs and Josh Jacobs. Hmm. It's kind of crazy to even think about it. Like that, you have to think about it, I should say. But JSN has been phenomenal. He's the wide receiver 5 right now, averaging damn near 20 fantasy points per game. And it's just been, I mean, 19.4, 18.3, 20.6, 13, and 27.2. I mean, he's never scored less than 13 PPR points this year. He's just been so damn consistent. And then Achane is obviously, he hasn't been quite as good as he was last year, but still not terrible. I mean, he's still averaging 18 and a half fantasy points per game, still the RB7. But when CeeDee Lamb comes back, I mean, he's still going to, I mean, especially with how good Dak Prescott's playing. And then Josh Jacobs still a really solid back. I guess I make that move. I guess it's tough though because I mean I think both of those guys are really solid plays, but I guess I probably would make that move just to get CeeDee Lamb. But I don't know. Actually, the more I think about it, I don't think I would. Like I don't know. It's crazy, but like JSN, like I don't think this is going away. I don't think this production is going away. And he's like a at this point he's like the Puka Nacua of his team right now. Like he's just seeing such a massive target share, and not that CeeDee Lamb won't, but CeeDee Lamb still has to deal with like George Pickens, who's gonna and Jake Ferguson for that matter. That's still gonna limit him some. Where JSN just doesn't have that. It's AJ Barner, it's Cooper Cup that's behind him. Like so, the more I think about it, I don't think I would. I don't think I would want to move on from JSN. Like I said, I think JSN is a legitimate top 5 wide receiver rest of season, and Achane is like a top 5 to 6 running back rest of season. I think Josh Jacobs is really solid, but Josh Jacobs is also limited in a lot what he does. And then I also look at, the like a CeeDee Lamb, like I said, like CeeDee Lamb's still going to be a probably top 3 wide receiver rest season. But I think what you're losing is and gaining, I don't think is enough. And so I think I'd rather have JSN and Achane than CeeDee Lamb and Josh Jacobs, which I don't know. Maybe it's crazy. But I think that's the way that I view it. I would probably rather have those 2. What about the Daniel Jones for either DK or if you could do that for Quentin Johnson, I'm doing it. No problem. It's to flip Daniel Jones for DK Quentin Johnson. And I get it's 2 quarterback league, but you'll be set then at quarterback. DeAndre Swift or Devonta Smith in the flex, halfway PPR. I appreciate you answering these questions. It'd be Devonta Smith, and I've kind of already answered Devonta Smith a couple times, or I kind of said why a couple times with Devonta Smith, but just no, really great statistical matchup, and it's also the Giants are terrible against slot wide receivers. They've allowed the most fantasy points slot wide receivers this year, so I think that's the way that I would play it if it was me. So I would go Devonta Smith. Is there probably a little bit more risk with Devonta Smith? Yes, because the Eagles are a risk every single week you play them. But DeAndre Swift just really hasn't been great either. So I would go with Devonta Smith. Jason and Lamb is a wash to me, so it comes down to who you want between Achane and Jacobs. Achane, in my opinion. Yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it. I think it's pretty damn close between those two wide receivers, and I would rather have Achane than Jacobs. Well, I think it's the last question. I don't know if I went through all these, showing all these, but and the wide receiver ones. Wide receiver twos and the wide receiver threes. And that's very much up in the air if Terry McLaurin plays this week. It does sound like he should return, but I wanted to put him on there because it does sound like he's much closer between all the other players to returning. And those are the kickers. Well, with that being said, I think that's the last question that's in here. Unless another one pops up, then I have a video to go record for tomorrow morning. My must-start plays of the week, which will be at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. Cover pretty much the entire slate. And what I don't also cover, I'm not going to talk about any of the top guys. Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and get out of here then. Walito, let me know whenever you want to come on. Just wouldn't mind having a guest on here to talk back and forth with. So let me know when you're available, what week you want to, what Wednesday you want to come on. Let me know whether it's in Discord or whatever you want to come on. And we'll another kicker question. Love it. Love the kicker questions. Should I drop Matt Prater for McLaughlin? Yes. Matt Prater may end up not being around once Tyler Bass comes back. It's going to be interesting to see what they want to do. There's a real scenario where Tyler Bass comes back and they just cut Matt Prater. And so it would be Chase McLaughlin for me. He's not in really any real risk. And he's been really good recently as well. So I would easily drop Matthew Prater for Chase McLaughlin at this point. So, yeah, just let me know, Walito, and we'll make it happen. We'll get you on here for one of these shows because it is kind of nice to have somebody to talk back and forth with, but instead of just talking like you're talking to yourself. But anyways, I guess I'm gonna get out of here. This is the last question. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate all the questions again. And if you haven't already, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. We'll be back in tomorrow with our video that I think everybody will enjoy. Kind of overcome or talking about pretty much this entire slate of games this weekend and our must plays at every position. And then we'll be back again on Thursday as well for a Thursday night. If you're in the DFS, me and Ryan go live every Thursday night. And then I will be going live, or I should be going live unless something comes up on Sunday morning once we have all the information, all of the injuries and everything else is completed. And so we'll be going live to kind of get through you and get all your last minute start sit questions answered on Sunday morning. So keep it locked in here. Appreciate all the support. And again, hit that like, hit the subscribe. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.